All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to 2024. Happy New Year's, everybody. And Moneyline MMA is bringing back the action here for UFC Vegas 84. First fight card of the year. We've had, I believe, 3 straight weeks off for the holidays, New Year's, and then last weekend we also had off to kind of finish off the hiatus of the UFC. And they are coming back with a nice little card headlined by Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. This is a rematch between the two for a no contest fight that got interrupted early on due to a leg kick or something that was illegal. They did not finish that fight. So Jose and I are bringing, as always, our 5 top picks for this card. And going forward, you're going to see some slight alterations here to our process at Moneyline MMA. We will be tracking our picks here for specific percentage win losses, which will become more relevant down the line later in the year once Jose and I have given, thinking about 15, 20 cards worth of picks. That's a good selection of 75 to 80 fights that we'll have win losses on, and we can start really kind of pinning down how good we are at predicting these fights. But as always, we will still have the weight system in place, with our 5 weight pick being the most confident pick of this card and 1 weight being the least confident pick of the card. Now keep in mind, we are opening up our selections of fights to the prelims. That does not mean we will discuss any prelims today. Simply if we think that one of the prelims is good enough and actually in a more confident pick than any of the main fights, it could be a part of one of our choices. So just keep that in mind as we advance to our most confident picks of the night. We always start with the heat, and let's go right at it. My heat for you guys, aka my 5 weight pick of Saturday afternoon, is coming in the second, currently at least second scheduled bout, a bantamweight bout between Ricky Simón and Mario Batista. Folks, I have my 5 weight here on Ricky Simón. I think Ricky Simón is being a little underappreciated, arguably a little bit undervalued as well. I think Ricky Simón is a beast. He's coming off of a main event, is the word I'm looking for, loss to Song Yadong, in which he just couldn't keep up with the strikes. And I understand that, but Song Yadong is a beast in and of himself, and has shown since his other win against Chris Gutierrez, since he's scheduled to fight Petr Yan, former champion. I think Song Yadong is a respectable loss to take in the UFC. And to be honest, Mario Batista just isn't at Song Yadong's level, in my opinion. Ricky Simón is getting a little bit of an interesting matchup style here because Batista does have a submission game of his own. 3 of his last 4 wins have come by submission of somebody. But I that to me is just interesting because I still feel like Ricky Simón is a little bit more lethal in that category. Although Batista does throw a lot of submission attempts, Ricky Simón is proven in the grappling side. And I think he's going to show that to Mario Bautista on Saturday night. So, to me, Ricky Simón is better in the striking and the grappling categories. I would like to see him still stand up with Bautista, but if he gets taken down, he won't freak out. And he's not going to get submitted in the first round like multiple of Bautista's wins have. So, Jose, what do you have for this, the second fight of Saturday night, in the main card at least?
Yeah, Nick. So, I like yourself. I have Ricky Simón taking the W this weekend, but he is my 3 weight. The reason is I do think he's going to have to bring on the pressure straight up. Both him and Mario Batista, as you mentioned, are both good, phenomenal grapplers, and no, without a doubt, Mario Batista is going to be trying to get a submission on Ricky Simón. And Ricky Simón, he himself, his grappling is some of the best in the division. I think we're definitely going to have like a wrestler versus wrestler. But when it comes to the takedowns, I think I would side more with Ricky Simón just because he does have a average of 5.84 takedowns per 3-round fight versus Mario Batista's 2.72. And when it comes to the takedown defense, Ricky Simone does have a better takedown defense than Mario Batista. So for that reason, I do think that Mario Batista is probably going to have a harder time taking Ricky Simone down versus Ricky Simone taking Mario Batista down. On the feet is where I get a little worried. Ricky Simone definitely needs to just close the gap and just immediately start grappling Mario Batista, because Mario Batista does have a slight reach advantage. He has a 3-inch reach advantage, and he also throws more significant strikes per minute. He lands 5.32 significant strikes per minute versus Ricky Simone's 3.01. And granted, Mario Batista does absorb more strikes too, with 4.2 versus Ricky Simone's 3.23. I just think the guy that's throwing I think the guy that is throwing the higher volume of punches, and if he has a longer reach, I think he's definitely going to have an easier time just racking up the points. So if it does come to unanimous decision, if Ricky Simone does not assert his dominance and take control and get that mat time, then yeah, Mario Batista is going to win this, I think, unanimously via unanimous decision, just by piecing up Ricky Simone. So for this one, I do think that Ricky Simone is capable and experienced enough to avoid those punches and close the gap, and pretty much, if need be, just ground and pound and ride his way out to a unanimous decision. Can he finish Mario Batista? I don't know. I think it is going to be hard to submit Mario Batista and KO him. If anything, I think he is going to be losing. Probably get his first loss via decision. He only has 2 losses on his record, and has never gone to decision. But Ricky Simone, he's just experienced enough now where I just don't think he's going to be forcing any type of finish whatsoever. Even though he is a finisher, he is coming off before his loss to Yadong Song. He did submit Jack Shore, and then also got a second round KO over Rafael Asanciao. So that being said, I think Ricky Simone, half of his wins come via decision alone. I think he's just pretty much going to out grapple and win via unanimous decision. And I have him as my 3-8 for this one. Again, just I'll remind everyone. But for this one, yeah, I agree with you on Ricky Simone, Nick.
Sounds good, man. And even looking through some of the competition for these guys, I think it's pretty fair to say that Ricky Simone's seen a lot more tough competition in his fights, in his days in the UFC. He's been able to fight and win against Merab Dvalishvili. I think that's pretty impressive. Montel Jackson, who's on the up and coming. He's fought Uriah Faber and Rob Font. And he's also fought, like you mentioned, a Sun Tzu, who isn't necessarily a huge name, but the dude's a legend in the division. And he had like a 27-8 record or something at the time. It was pretty impressive. And he just recently, I think, retired because it's back in 21. But regardless, man, I really have seen way more impressive competition that Ricky Simone has stepped in there against. He's won against some and lost against some. The fact of the matter is, Mario Batista is fighting his toughest opponent he's ever seen before, and I'm just not sure Ricky Simone could say the same thing. Especially not about Mario Batista. I'm not trying to hate, but Ricky Simone's been there and done that with champions. So that to me makes somewhat of a difference, at least being able to get to that point. If the fight goes deep into the 3rd round like we think it might. In any case, there's definitely some value for Mario Batista if you really think he's going to be able to strike and keep Simone off his back. But it doesn't seem that Jose nor I think that will be the case for Saturday night, and Ricky Simone should be getting the victory.
Yes, sir. And that brings us over to my 5-weight, and this is actually already with straightforward to the main event with the big boys at the light heavyweight division. The number 3 Magomed Ankalaev versus the number 7 Johnny Walker. Right now, Magomed is the betting favorite at -520, while Johnny Walker is the betting underdog at +350. So for this one, it is a rematch due to this disqualification last time by Magomed because of the knee. And last time I did have Johnny Walker. I forgot what weight I had him, but I had him because I was expecting something to be. I was expecting him to be extremely explosive and just kind of get a good lucky shot against Magomed. But my mind's definitely changed since then, and now actually I'm the opposite. I have Magomed winning this, and I'm so strong that he's my 5-weight. Both guys big, tall dudes. I think Magomed, he Johnny Walker is slightly taller, and has a longer reach, and that's a big reason why I was for him last time. I thought that his striking as well was going to be the biggest factor against Magomed, but even that little bit that we already saw, so that's why it's a little unfair for me, and I guess not to make the switch. But just the little bit that I saw, it's like you can just tell right away that Magomed's the better fighter. Johnny Walker was not pulling the trigger as much as he should have, and I don't think much is going to be different in this one. I think Magomed is overall the better striker and grappler. Without a doubt, it's going to be easy to. It should be easy to put Johnny Walker down in terms of just get a hold of him, get a hold of him, and just start ground and pounding. That being said, yeah, this one I'm really strong. Magomed, he's not one in a minute. He has that draw and then disqualification. So I think it's about due time. He gets a good win. Johnny Walker, he has had a phenomenal 3 fight run. But the names he's being, I will say out of the 3 names he's being, like Ian Kudalaba, Paul Craig, and Anthony Smith, probably the best out of 3 right now. I don't even know, man. Probably maybe Paul Craig. All 3 guys are respectable and good, but just there's a difference between those 3 guys versus Magomed. Even though Craig Jones does have that win over Magomed, it was very last minute. This one, I think Magomed's going to probably finish Johnny Walker, but if not, definitely have a unanimous decision win. Overall, I just think he's the better fighter, so that's why he's my 5 weight. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
I also have Ankalaev, and he is my 4 weight, so I'm pretty confident as well. For a lot of the same reasons, I think you gave a great handicap. I think Ankalaev is going to be much of the same in their fight. I think Johnny Walker would have intrigued me if we saw him come out with spinning elbows or spinning kicks. His kind of crazy style that he seems to like, and throw at people randomly. I think he really needs to lean into that if he's going to be able to beat Ankalaev. We saw Ankalaev land a takedown as well. Um, and I think Johnny Walker was in the process of getting up when the events occurred that led to the fight being called off. I can't remember quite as well, but I do know that Ankalaev was credited for a takedown. And I think it's just going to be, as I was just saying, Mott's more of the same. We're going to see Ankalaev put the pressure on, kind of make Walker freeze in his steps, not want to throw as much as he should. And Ankalaev's going to creep in there, get a takedown. He's going to hold Johnny Walker down for half the round. He's going to get the round win. I'm actually, on my end of things, I'm actually thinking and betting over on the rounds and betting Ankalaev by decision. I don't really think I could agree that he's going to knock out Johnny Walker. Certainly is possible. After Johnny Walker was clearly like dazed enough to not even know where he was when they called off the last fight. That wasn't even that long ago. Johnny Walker has been KO'd before. Jamal Hill showed him the business in 2022. So there is a chance. Like there is likelihood Walker does get knocked out, but I just don't really see that much out of Magomed. I know he got the technical against Anthony Smith, but I don't know. We just really don't see Magomed like get the lights out knockouts that you would expect for someone with his size and power. Could be wrong. This is only 3 rounds here. I will take Magomed and over 2.5.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. That's why I say it's like unfair for me to go with Magomed this time because I was expecting, as you mentioned, Walker has that explosive, crazy style, and it's gets big results. You risk big to win big. But as he's going on, something I've mentioned too before with Johnny Walker is that he's definitely becoming a better, more calculated fighter and using his energy when need be, and he's going to have to when he's going against more elite level fighters. So I think that's why in that fight too, he wasn't pulling the trigger as much either because he knew one minor mistake could be big, could be a big consequence for him because maybe like those like I'm sure over time he'll start feeling more comfortable and loosening up, but as of now, he seems to definitely be a little more tentative and hold back maybe just a little and not throw his crazy stuff right away. So that's why too. I'm like, it's not the Johnny Walker that I thought was going to show up. He didn't show up, and that being said, I'm basing off what I saw recently too, and I think that's the same Johnny Walker that may come in again. And I agree with you. I think Uncle Ive is going to get the takedown. But yeah, we both you view him as getting a unanimous decision, which I do. I definitely see as a possibility too if he does not finish Johnny Walker. Like I think it's just going to be him walking through him. So, but in that, yeah, if not, who knows? Johnny Walker. Every once in a while, you mentioned he gets knocked. He has been knocked out before, and every once in a while, even if he didn't get finished that fight, he gets clipped, and that's where you see him like flop around and do like whatever this is he's doing, and and so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some of that
Yeah.
stuff. So that being said, this is one we're both going to agree on. We both have Magomed Ankalaev as our picks. He is my 5 weight, and he is your 3 weight.
Yeah, man. I mean, Johnny Walker, we didn't talk about his size advantage here. Johnny Walker's 3 inches taller, 7 inches longer. And you know what to me that means? That means when Magomed gets on him, he's going to be a compact little, like, ball of muscle that Johnny's just not going to have a chance of getting Magomed off his back. Now, I get it. He was getting up in the process of last fight. So there is a, he's a strong guy. And even though he's got long limbs, I could see him getting up, but I think it's just going to take so much out of him that it's just going to be a slow energy drain. Ankalaev is just going to continue to step forward. And yeah, dude, that's why I'm really convinced this will be an over 2.5. And if Ankalaev gets the KO late in the third, we still cash our ticket. But yeah, that being said, that covers my 5 weight and your 5 weight, and also my 4 weight right there with Magomed. So in order to keep with the weight system, we should probably move on to your 4 weight next, Jose, because we have discussed my 5 and 4 already.
Yes. So for my 4 weight, this is going to be the matchup at flyweight between Matus Nicolau and Manal Kopp. Right now, Nicolau is the betting underdog at plus 200, while Manal Kopp is the betting favorite at minus 265. Manal Kopp, he looked impressive. He just came off that unanimous decision win over Felipe dos Santos in September, and he's riding off a 4-fight win streak, and it kicked off with having a spectacular first round KO over Adi Osborne. And Adi Osborne, that was a guy back then where I was viewing highly on, and thought he was going to be like a future breakout star. So Manal Kopp starting it off like that is just huge. And this right now is definitely going to be a bigger fight for him for sure. Nicolau's coming off a first round loss to Brandon Royval, so it's gonna be a tough one to some degree. But I feel confident enough of just having Manal Kopp as my 4 weight, and reason being is just both guys are similar statue. He has a slightly longer reach, but when it comes to the striking, I think Manal Kopp is the better striker. And Matus Nicolau, possibly the better grappler, but he has yet to have any submissions. While Manal Kopp has 2 submissions. I think Manal Kopp is pretty much just gonna piece up Matus Nicolau pretty much on the feet for the most part. When it gets getting taken down, I don't know if this fight's gonna go to the ground much, and if it does, I think Nicolau's gonna probably be the one to dictate it. But again, I think Manal Kopp is just a lot better in terms of submission as well. That he wouldn't care to get taken down by Nicolau. I think if he got taken down by Nicolau, he would be confident enough to just fight on the ground, get back up, or sink into submission. He's definitely gonna be looking for a submission no matter what. But on the feet, Manal Kopp all day. He lands 5.12 significant strikes per minute versus Matu Nicolau's 3.66. So both guys are high volume punchers. The one thing that kind of I guess that I see that kind of is not the best thing I see about Manal Kopp is just how many hits he takes. It says here that he absorbs 4.51 significant strikes. I'm assuming per minute. So that's not good. And so that's the only thing that I don't like about him overall. But other than that, I think he's gonna get the win. I feel good enough. He's the better fighter in this matchup. Minus 250. I think it's no reason why. I feel like this would have been definitely a closer fight. I'm surprised that Nicolau is as big of a favorite as he is, but there's a lot of value in that too. Him being the plus 205. So, what are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
Yeah, kind of what you finished with there is I'm coming from a place of kind of slight disbelief on the line here. Um, this is a rematch between two guys, and the loser of the first match is minus 265. I mean, if that's not value, I don't know what is. Um, full disclosure, I have a one weight on Ankalaev, so I am not sitting here like saying Ankalaev is going to disassemble Manel Cop. Right, and their first fight was a split decision, so it was close. And some of the discussions I've seen around that say that Cop should have gotten the win, blah blah blah. He was robbed. I don't really agree. He did look better striking though. 100% you're right. Manel Cop is the better striker here. There's no doubt about it. He takes shots, sure. But Nicolau, he has gotten a recent KO against Matt Schnell, but I don't know. I'm not as impressed. So there's no doubt about it that Cop is much more live for a KO or just winning with the striking. But I still think Nicolau deserves respect in the wrestling game. He took down Manel Cop twice in their first fight. And I think if Nicolau wants to win this fight on Saturday, he's going to have to do the same. So Manel Cop does concern me with some of the striking abilities he's displayed. That's why I only have a one weight here on Nicolau. But just because, we've literally seen Nicolau get the job done once. And I'm ready to see a similar thing happen again. Whether or not you put a lot of weight into Manel Cop's 77% takedown defense, go ahead. But he hasn't fought anybody that's really going to search for that takedown anyways. I guess David Dvorak landed 2 of 3 takedowns. So I could even go so far as to say that the guys who want to land takedowns on Manel Cop can. So if Manel Cop stands and he's able to box it out, he'll probably get the win. But I like my one weight here on Nicolau for the value of the money line. It's a guy he's already beat. He's seen what he's got. And they're similar ages, so I think they both have had room to improve the past couple of years. I don't think either guy is going to have shown to like significantly improve more than the other. So I'm ready to see Nicolau come in there, get some takedowns, make it a close fight. But if Manel Cop gets his way, there's probably a KO in the first half of the fight. So it'll be interesting. If Manel Cop gets caught reaching or extending too hard for a strike, his back will be on the ground for sure. And whether or not Nicolau finishes with a submission or just kind of wins by points is up to him from there. So one weight for me, Matheus Nicolau, recognizing Cop's ability to strike and just hoping that Nicolau doesn't allow that for 15 minutes or less.
Yeah. No, yeah, and like I mentioned too, just added more to my point where Nicolau extremely dangerous, especially having that win over Manel Cop. Even you mentioned it being a split decision. There still has to be some type of confidence still riding with him in that. And then he just fighting Brandon Royval, as we just saw, he just fought for the championship last month. So there's he's right up there. He's pretty close up there though too. Just this win over Manel Cop too. I think Nicolau too would definitely put him in the talks of eventual title contention as well. Soon enough, that is. But Manel Cop making moves as well. But this one's definitely one where we're both going to agree to disagree on. I have Manel Cop taking the win. You have Nicolau Nazcom, so that's why he's your one weight. And I have Manel Cop as my 4 weight.
Awesome. We will then move on to my 3 weight pick. We only got a couple of fights left here to discuss, but my 3 weight is next, and that will be on Jim Miller. Jim Miller is fighting Gabriel Benitez. And what can I really say about Jim Miller other than just give him the props he deserves for all the records, blah, blah, blah. He's been in the UFC forever. Okay, cool. There's definitely going to be a time to fade Jim Miller. There's going to be a time, unless he goes out on a win here after this fight. I'm ready to bet against Jim Miller one of these times. It's just not going to be now. Gabriel Benitez to me is not enough of a threat. to Jim Miller. He's gotten some KO wins, some KO losses in his last few fights. So he's really like kind of boom or bust in these fights. Gabriel Benitez is. He's either getting the KO, getting KO'd. He's had some decision finishes, but not since 2020. I mean, Jim Miller to me is just kind of like the better multi-tool. Jim Miller, I think, comes from a place of more jiu-jitsu wrestling background, but as of late, you're seeing more KOs and stuff like that. I mean, he submitted Donald Cerrone, both old dudes back in 22, so it's not like it was at either one's prime. But he's also gotten KOs recently. Jim Miller's kind of got like a discovered power, like out of nowhere almost. Uh, so I'm not sitting here saying he's going to knock out Gabriel Benitez, but he might knock out Gabriel Benitez. The dude's been knocked out twice in his last 4 fights, and he didn't fight at all in 2023. Maybe that's good for him. Maybe it gives him plenty of time to rest and recover. But I don't know, man. I'm not betting against one of the legends of the sport that what you're getting out of Jim Miller, and it's going to be a hearty effort to win that fight. I'm not sure I can say the same for Gabe Magli, as his nickname is. So no, I'm taking Jim Miller here. Give me the 3-weight. And just as a reference, quick, Jim Miller and Gabriel Benitez are pretty much even odds right now at -110 a pop. So fascinating to see. Looks like some money has been coming on Gabe because he opened as the dog. Slight dog, though. Not very heavy. Still, that's just fascinating to see. It's just a slight difference there from the open, but I really like Jim Miller in this fight.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I have Jim Miller as well. Dude's still giving it. Dude, 36-17 is insane in the UFC since 2008. But he is my 2-weight because, man, he's 40. I just feel like time. I don't know, man. I just feel like Father Time's going to catch up sometime, And he has had his fair share of win and losses, but right now, Gabriel Benitez, he himself being 35, he's not the youngest either, so it is a pretty decent matchup. And by far, looking at their records, you can definitely tell Jim Miller's the better fighter. Been in longer, faced definitely, like, his resume is crazy, speaks for itself. Just the names he's fought against. Unfortunately, a lot of those bigger names he's not won against. But he got like a win back over Donald Cerrone last year. 2 years ago in 2022. And most recently, coming off that first round KO over the summer in June over Jesse Butler. Insane knockout, ruthless. He's just getting in there. He's like no wasting time anymore. Just getting in there and wants to finish someone. And that's the thing. Like he's just been in for so long. I just really want to see more than what we saw because we saw him fight only twice last year. He went unanimous decision, lost with Alexander Hernandez, but that's a young buck. And then you have going to Jesse Butler, knocking him out in the first round. It's hard to deny Jim Miller. Just everything from, I think it's just his fight IQ is probably the best thing he has going for him is that. And there's really no other advantages really for Gabriel Benitez. Both have the same reach. Both are the same height. Both have obviously are both the same weight. Gabriel Benitez does throw more significant punches per minute, so that's where Jim Miller's going to have to use his vet mind and just kind of work his way around that. He absorbs less punches than Gabriel Benitez, so I definitely shows that Jim Miller's striking defense is up there. And when it comes to the grappling department, I would say Jim Miller is probably the better grappler as well. Benitez has 2 submissions. Has 10 submissions, I would say, under his belt. But Jim Miller has 19. And again, it's probably just definitely because of the more experience. But I'm definitely thinking Jim Miller is the better grappler in this case. He's more likely to go for the takedown. Gabriel Benitez, believe it or not, actually barely goes for the takedowns. He only has a .27 takedown average versus Jim Miller's 1.56 per 3-round fight. So in this one, I honestly take it Jim Miller winning anyway, whether it's submission, knockout, or decision. I just think overall the vet's gonna pull through for this one, but he is my 2-weight, and the only reason is just because of his age. Pretty much that's pretty much it, and the miles that he's put into the sport. There's just times where just these guys just all of a sudden fall from grace out of nowhere, and they've been in it for so long. Like Like Frankie Edgar, for example, is one I can think of most recently. So, or Tony Ferguson. Luckily, luckily he doesn't have the same career path as Tony, I guess. But that being said, this one I agree with you. I have Jim Miller. He's my two-way because I'm just not as confident, but I do think he'll get the win. So I'll agree with you on Jim Miller on this one.
Yeah, man. I think from my perspective, I'm not really that worried about his age, man, because when you list a lot of the greats that have fallen, you kind of see it, right? Like we're talking about Tony Ferguson. He gets knocked out by one of the most brutal knockouts you've ever seen by Michael Chandler front kick, right? We all knew he should have called it. We just knew, like, ever since that very moment, we were like, okay, Tony's kind of all right, yeah, I guess, and it's like nobody's thought Tony's like, yeah, take that fight against Patty. Like, dude, come on, you're just you're setting yourself up. And I guess looking back to Nate Diaz, he probably should have done better against Nate too because they're both old. But I don't know. What I'm getting at here, man, is I think Jim Miller's doing it right. He's not fighting Patty the Batty. He's not fighting Mateusz Gamrot. He's not fighting. He's fighting a guy, according to Tapology, is the 101st lightweight in the world. That's very impressive. That's very impressive, right? But Jim Miller's the 41st. That's crazy. You don't get that very many times in a year with these fights where a guy that's that lowly ranked fights a guy that's highly ranked. So the ranks don't mean everything. The math will never always be perfect where the lesser number always wins, or whatever. But I don't know, for those reasons, dude, like I said, there will be a time to fade Jim Miller. I totally agree. But if he's fighting another guy who's like kind of aging, I guess Gabe's not 40 years old, but Benitez is like, what is he? He's 2-4 in his last 6. Right? If it was like, okay, Jim Miller's fighting a guy who's 6-4 or 6-2 in his last 8 or 4-2 in his last 6, it's like, oh shit. Okay, Jim Miller might need to look out. This guy's kind of on a streak. That's not at all the case, and that's kind of why I'm not really concerned here about Jim Miller's age becoming a factor. And I'm almost thinking, like, as I say all this, he's my 3-weight. I might say I'm more currently thinking I'm more confident in Jim Miller than I am Magomed. But we'll have to see if I change that throughout the week. Currently, Magomed is my 4-weight. But yeah, I'm good. I'm good on Jim Miller. I just wanted to make that point. I'm ready to bet against him if he keeps fighting. But hey, I think Jim Miller's doing it right if he just like takes this win and retires, man. He's like, look, I finished just this guy. Like, I got the win, and I'm gonna call it now. I'm 40. Maybe he's going for 40 wins. I don't know, but I think Jim Miller's pretty rather safe to put in a nice little parlay this weekend.
Yeah, and that's the thing with someone at his age, his position. What else is he fighting for? Unless he really truly thinks he'll win, because yeah, like 40, he's not. I mean, he's just a legend just for how long he's been and everyone he's had these wars with. But Jim Miller's not going to be getting a title shot anytime soon. Like,
Yeah.
so like it's one of those things where yeah, like he's definitely gonna just ride off to the sunset, which I hope he does. I hope he does. If it's not here, if it's not this fight, maybe relatively soon. But it would be cool if he does get 40-17. That'd be extremely cool. So that being
Yeah.
said, yeah, this is one where, yeah, I agree with you. It's on Jim Miller. He's my 2-way and he's your 3-way.
Yeah, so that's a good point too. Last fight though, for us to discuss. I'll let you take it away. I believe it's the opening fight on this card. Main card
Yes,
at
and
least.
this is the middleweight bout between Phil Hawes and Bruno Ferreira. Right now, Phil Hawes is the betting underdog at -106, while Bruno Ferreira is the betting favorite at -120. This one, I'm going with Phil. He is coming off a 2-fight losing streak, both in the first round. So that's probably the easiest indicator of why he's my one weight. And while Bruno Ferreira, he is also coming off a first round KO to Nursultan Ruzboev, and that just came off mid last year in July. But before then, he was on a phenomenal 10 fight winning streak, which is crazy. So that being said, I think this fight's almost anyone's game. Phil, he does not have the best chin just right off the bat, being knocked out twice in a row. And then he also got knocked out by Chris Curtis in 2021, also in the first round. So Bruno Ferreira, out of his 10 wins, 7 are by KO, and he has a lot of KOs in the first round. And the more I talk about this, the more I actually want to switch over. Bruno is my one weight, just because, yeah, he has a lot of first round KOs and TKOs. And Phil Haas, out of his 5 losses, more than half of them he's been slept, and 3 of them are literally in the first round. He doesn't have the chin, but that being said, I mean, like, I know I just kind of trashed on him, and I'm not switching though. I definitely am going with Phil Haas, but again, he's my least confident. And a big indicator to why I'm signing with him is just his reach advantage. He has a 5.5 reach advantage over Bruno Ferreira. And when it comes to striking, both these guys are throwing numbers up there. It's going to be a striking match for sure. Phil Haas throws 5.55 significant strikes per minute, while Bruno Ferreira 5.79. And I will say Bruno absorbs a lot more strikes than Phil Haas does, though. Bruno Ferreira absorbs 5.22 per minute, while Phil Haas absorbs 3.7. And when it comes to the grappling department, Phil's probably the better grappler. He's going to be the one more likely to engage in the takedown. Bruno Ferreira actually really doesn't engage in takedowns at all. I don't see a recorded takedown for him at all. So if it was going to come for the takedown advantage, I would say it would come towards Phil Haas's side. And Bruno Ferreira, he has a 50% takedown defense. Need to see more exactly who he's gone against for those. He has not been in the UFC obviously as long, but having a first round win over Gregory Rodriguez is actually pretty huge. So there's a lot. There is Bruno Ferreira. Bruno Ferreira is a solid choice, but Phil Haas is not a bad underdog. He's not that much of an underdog, minus 102. To be honest, yeah, I'm not the most confident with Phil Haas, but I do think just his size and is going to be a big indicator in this one, and the striking advantage as well. In the striking as well, I wouldn't say it's much of an advantage, but I will say it will be an advantage. I think it'll look a lot differently when you see someone throwing 5.55 significant strikes per minute and have a 5.5 reach advantage. I think that's gonna be very evident when they match up, and he is slightly taller, being just only 2 inches taller than Bruno Ferreira. So I think just the bigger guy in this one will come out victorious. He is a bit older too, only by 4 years. So that being said, yeah, he's been knocked out twice in the first round. He really can't go for 3. If he gets knocked out, I think if he just gets knocked out or finished in general, he'll probably be out of the UFC. I got Phil Haas. He's the underdog in this one. And, yeah, he's my one way, my least confident pick. What are your thoughts on this one, Nick?
I feel like you spent a lot of time to not say a whole lot for Phil Haas right there. That's hilarious. Yeah, I'm surprised. I would not have thought Phil Haas was your pick after hearing that, but I don't blame you. I mean, he has taken that's the weakness right there, is the chin. I'm not sure his career with the UFC is necessarily at the line, because he's really fought like between Jacob Malkoun, Nasruddin Imavov, Kyle DeKaus, Chris Curtis, Roman Dolidze, Ikram Aliskerov. The dude's just been lighting up other people in the UFC. I mean, the competition in that list is significantly better than anybody Bruno Ferreira's ever fought. I like RoboCop. That's a good KO to have, no doubt about it. But, when I've seen Phil Haas win the fights he should win, and he loses the fights against top-end competition. He gets KO'd by, Chris Curtis. Yeah, one of the best boxers in the UFC. You know what I'm saying? Roman Dolidze, I don't think he's ever fought for the belt, but he got just about as close as you can get before he lost to Vittori. I mean, just saying, Ikram's 15-1, has never lost in the UFC. So those are very respectable losses. Phil Hawes' chin is the number one concern, but he is my one weight. I don't think Ferreira is going to get the KO here, and Ferreira to me is KO or bust. So give me Phil Hawes at a very hesitant two weight. If I said one weight earlier, I misspoke. My one weight is Mateus Nicolau, as I said earlier. Phil Hawes is my two weight. Slightly more confident in him than Nicolau, just because I think yes, he has that chance of getting KO'd. I'm just not as confident in Ferreira's ability to get that KO. I think Phil Hawes will be able to hang in there and get himself a nice little decision win by the end of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. I think Phil Haas, um, yeah, he does have KO. He does have power in his hands. He just needs to let loose and let it go. Bruno, he just been KO'd obviously in the first round, his most recent fight. But again, him having a 10 fight winning streak, the chance of it happening twice in a row to him too is going to be insane. But that being said, it's yeah my least confident pick. It's almost anyone's game, but I'm gonna go with the guy that's the bigger guy who throws high volume punches and is the slightly better grappler. So, which is Phil Haas. So, I'm hoping he does not get three strikes and out. So, that being said, yeah, I'll agree with you. I also not a confident pick, but he's my pick. Phil Haas, my one weight, and he's your two weight.
All right, well that's all the cards. I gotta get out of here. Thanks anyone for listening. We will be back next week, as always on Monday afternoon. Have a good one.